Every modern city depends on supply chains that extend far beyond its physical boundaries. Food arrives every day, often multiple times a day. Materials arrive just in time to be assembled, sold, or consumed. Fuel arrives continuously, keeping transportation, heating, and electricity stable. From the perspective of daily life, this system feels natural, efficient, invisible, permanent. Most people rarely think about it. They do not see where food is grown. They do not see how fuel is transported. They do not see how raw materials cross borders, oceans, and continents before reaching a single shelf. The system works quietly in the background, so quietly that its existence is almost forgotten, until it stops. When modern supply chains fail, cities do not slow down gradually. They collapse, shelves empty within hours. Transportation systems stall. Hospitals ration supplies. Factories shut down. Essential services begin to fail. Panic spreads faster than explanation. The failure feels sudden, unexpected, almost unreal. But this collapse is not sudden. It is structural. Ancient cities lived with disruption as a constant reality. Drought interrupted harvests. Conflict severed trade routes. Political instability reshaped alliances overnight. Floods and storms destroyed crops. Sieges isolated populations for months or years. Disruption was not an anomaly. It was expected. Yet many ancient cities endured for centuries. Some endured for more than 1,000 years. They did not collapse at the first interruption. They adapted. They absorbed stress. They reorganized. They survived. The difference was not technology. It was logistics. The dark network analyzed ancient supply systems not as primitive markets, but as operational networks designed for survival. What emerged from this analysis was not randomness. It was consistency. Across civilizations separated by geography, culture, and time, the same logistical logic appeared again and again. Ancient logistics prioritized proximity. They prioritized redundancy. They prioritized storage. Modern logistics prioritize speed. They prioritize scale. They prioritize optimization. Ancient cities did not assume constant inflow. They assumed interruption. They assumed delay. They assumed failure. Survival did not depend on daily delivery. It depended on buffer capacity. Food was stored inside the city itself, not in one centralized location, but across multiple layers. Households stored grain and preserved food. Neighborhoods maintained shared reserves. Districts held communal stockpiles. Central granaries existed. But they were not single points of failure. They were only one layer within a broader, distributed system. If one store was lost, others compensated. If one route failed, another remained. Storage was layered, redundant, local. Supply routes were short. Markets were nearby. Production existed close to consumption. Farms surrounded cities. Workshops operated within or near city walls. Artisans produced essential goods locally. Trade existed, but trade supplemented survival. It did not enable it. Ancient cities could survive trade disruption. They could endure isolation. They could function under siege, because survival was embedded into the urban system itself. Modern cities invert this logic entirely. Food production is externalized far from consumption. Storage is minimized to reduce cost. Supply routes stretch across continents. Efficiency depends on uninterrupted movement. Timing replaces buffering. Flow replaces reserve. Any disruption propagates instantly. A delay in one port affects supermarkets thousands of kilometers away. A shortage of fuel impacts food, medicine, transport, and power simultaneously. Ancient logistics absorbed disruption. Modern logistics amplify it. Ancient supply systems were designed to fail slowly. Losses were local. Shortages emerged gradually. Redistribution occurred naturally through proximity. Communities adjusted consumption. Markets adapted pricing. Time existed to respond. Modern supply systems fail abruptly. A single disruption cascades across the entire network. Cities experience simultaneous shortages across multiple sectors: food, fuel, medicine, spare parts, public services. This is not a failure of technology. It is a failure of design philosophy. Ancient engineers treated logistics as a survival system. Modern systems treat logistics as a profit system. This distinction is critical. In ancient cities, storage was not considered waste. It was insurance against drought, against war, against weather, against human error. Modern systems removed insurance to reduce cost. Buffers were labeled inefficiency. Surplus was labeled loss. Ancient cities built surplus directly into infrastructure. Granaries were integrated into architecture. Storage spaces were climate-controlled without energy. Depth regulated temperature. Mass stabilized humidity. Airflow reduced spoilage. Food could be preserved for years. Loss through spoilage was minimized without electricity, fuel, or machines. Modern storage relies on energy, refrigeration, transport, precise timing. When energy fails, storage fails. When transport fails, storage becomes inaccessible. The dark network identified a recurring historical sequence. As cities centralized, storage consolidated. Local buffers disappeared. Supply chains lengthened. Dependency increased. Control improved. Fragility followed. Collapse did not occur immediately. It followed later, predictably, inevitably. Ancient supply systems were dismantled not because they were inefficient, but because they reduced control. Distributed storage resisted taxation. Local production resisted monopolization. Redundancy resisted regulation. Centralized supply chains enabled pricing power. They enabled leverage. They enabled dependency. They also enabled fragility. Today, cities experience shortages despite unprecedented technological capacity. The world produces more food than ever before, more energy than at any point in history, more materials than ancient civilizations could imagine. Yet scarcity persists, not because production is insufficient, but because resilience was removed. Ancient systems did not prevent scarcity through abundance. They prevented it through design. They assumed disruption. They planned for interruption. They embedded survival into structure. Modern cities assume continuity. They plan for efficiency. They react to crisis. This file documents the logistic systems that kept cities alive, and the design decisions that removed them. Analysis complete. The file remains open. Subscribe to Dark History Files to access the next erased system. The system relies on silence. Do not give it what it wants.